I'm good to go?
Very good.
Okay. Good morning. We're gonna officially start the Fort Myers Beach Public Safety Committee for Tuesday, November 19th. We're gonna call to order. We're gonna start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, start with our roll call. Todd, let's start with you.
Okay,
Just say your name.
Todd Capella.
Kieran Farrell.
Don Thomas.
Jim Bagoulis.
And Jim Nickel.
Ron Bennick wants to join in via Zoom, so we need to make a motion to approve that.
So I make a motion for Ron to join by Zoom.
Second.
All right, motion approved. All right, you got him in?
Zoom it in.
He has not joined the link yet,
Okay,
but we'll keep an eye on it.
all right, well, they're gonna keep going. We got people who've got things to do. All right, now we get the reorganization of the selection of the chair of the safety committee and the vice chair. Heidi was our vice chair last year, and since she's no longer with us. I'm open to be uprooted if anybody wants to take my spot, so if anybody has any,
I'd be interested in vice chair.
anybody else?
Yeah.
Ta-da.
We make a motion, I make
Make a
a motion
motion.
to Don and Jim in their position, Don in her current position and Jim as vice chair.
I'll second that motion.
Motion approved. Public comment? None. Approval of the minutes from last month? Did everybody get through those?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is it this one? Yep.
Second.
All right, minutes are approved. Staff report and updates. We will start with, Chief Worth.
Good morning. Good morning, for the record, Scott Worth, Fire Chief, Fort Myers Beach Fire Department. I'll start by saying congratulations on your successful campaign for chair and your new position.
Thank you. It was rough.
Hard fought.
All those signs and everything.
So I put in front of you the report for calls for last month, kind of broke down by category. In the past, you've heard me talk about how typically our distribution of calls is 75% medical and 25% fire and others. You're gonna see it's completely inverse. Right now, with the buildings out there that are being put back together, we're seeing a lot of stuck elevators, a lot of fire alarms, a lot of unintentional alarms and stuff like that. I'm happy to say we have talked in the past about me bringing a second report on traumatic type injuries. Last month was a very good month for us as far as public safety goes. We had no trauma calls of significance to bring to you. So, yeah, we're seeing more with electrical hazards and stuff of that nature than we are on medical calls. We are starting to see our call volume come up at 300 a month for the last month. The numbers are coming up, but the distribution of calls is different as the island recovers. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Does your office have, well, I guess what I would say, interaction with contractors to the extent that we're maybe try to prevent some of these accidents from occurring?
So yes, a lot of the contractors are very proactive because it affects them heavily if they have accidents on their job sites. Working with contractors personally in the past, I know some contractors will even bring in their subcontractors and have them stretch in the morning and you know, have a safety talk and things of that nature. That culture's embedded in a lot of your bigger contractors. So I think that adds to the minimizing the job site injuries.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask, are you noticing any, I know, we're starting to see more people on the weekends. Are we starting to see any type of for season quite yet, or are we still pretty quiet?
Right now, it's pretty quiet, but with sand sculpting coming,
Yeah.
you know, I know the chamber's planning for a big weekend, and, you know, we're expecting a good turnout this weekend.
I hope so.
Last year, we did start seeing some seasonal people return more than the year prior, so.
Okay.
I think it's a little early to see what the season's gonna bring this year.
That's interesting. We keep seeing more fires for the electrical or things like that. Just wonder if that's gonna keep going.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know.
Has there been any issues with after the hurricanes, any health concerns or anything after the 2 hurricanes that we experienced?
No, that's a good question. So one of the things that we experienced this time around, you'll realize that the island opened pretty quick after Milton.
Yeah.
So, a couple things has happened and we will be revising our hurricane policy. We started getting calls the day before the hurricane as the evacuations were announced. And, we started getting calls from people saying, I'm up north, there's nobody in my house, don't break down the door. So what we know as after Ian, the search and rescue mission caused places that looked like they could be occupied or signs of life to have to force doors. We, in the day during the hurricane and before the hurricane, we fielded almost 1,300 emails and phone calls of people saying, I'm not home, you know, this is my address, this is the status of the building. So after the storm between us and the sheriff's department, there were very few outstanding calls for service where we had to go and check buildings and check on people and make sure they were okay. So we'll be adding that to our procedures and our messaging before the storms. And we're also working internally to create forms where people can log in and fill out a form and say, here's the status of my house and we're not there, and here's where we're at. So, you know, you always learn something from these events, and that's the big takeaway that we had from Hurricane Milton.
I have a question on that, cause I did use that service because it was on social media. Did you feel that we need to change it, change the, communication process to you?
Yes.
Because I remember it looked like you were supposed to call, and then I called and she goes, no, you're supposed to email, so I didn't know if there's something we can do as a safety committee to do, a campaign that pushes that out, so the communication is better on the procedures of what people need to do.
So that came to us, a few people reached out proactively, and then we worked through local media and our social media to go ahead and push that information out. Because if people were gonna willingly let us know,
Right.
then we were certainly gonna take the information. We had to throw a couple people at that task of receiving all of those calls and emails and responding, so your response might not have been timely, but, you know, the fact that we were taking in 1,300
I think that was
unexpected calls, it was great. But what we're gonna do now is we'll create the form and it'll be part of our messaging, so people will know, similar to the way the county's pushing out all their messaging. If you're on Fort Myers Beach, go onto our website, fill out the form, let us know, you know, the status of your building and your location,
Okay.
so.
Actually, they were
and that-
very quick. They weren't slow at all. They were actually very fast.
Yeah, I've got good staff, so I'll
Yeah.
let them know that.
Yes, he does.
I mean, that builds into what the hurricane response plan, which is a couple line items down. This is exactly what we had talked about originally, was the
Yeah.
two-way communication, because there was, you know, last hurricane, there was a mandatory evacuation, and some people did stay. I talked to the town manager and heard that a few people did stay, but there wasn't that communication of who they were, where they were. And I think that could be part of this form, or some type of communication to say, yes, I am staying. That should be your, you know, from a emergency response, you know, you search and respond to the people that you know were staying first, and then you could open up the island. So that was, you know, when we were talking about the hurricane response all this time, it was like, how do we engage, the people that are staying or not staying, know who they are so we can respond to them quickly. So the form might work out. I would also talk to Nicole about, there's a new Fort Myers Beach app, so we need to see if that could be a way to house it, or using the form that you're using. So I think there's, in that realm of like that two-way communication, to know the status of the buildings and people, is just kind of that continuation of just making Fort Myers Beach safer and elevating, you know, our communication to our residents and guests.
I would think once we could get this solidified, that it would be helpful if we could put out in advance what to do if an evacuation is called for Fort Myers Beach. And then the first item on that list is how to communicate your status
Yep.
to the town and to the fire department. I suppose it wouldn't matter either way, whoever they tell, if we're working hand in hand, the fire district and the town. That would be the best option, I think, that we could put together if possible.
Another big factor during Milton was us and the town staff ending up at the same shelter location. So we're working on formalizing that as well, because it did play a vital role. So if the information was coming into the town and the town or the fire department, and we're collaborating on that resource and sharing that data. And again, like you said, you know, when an evacuation is ordered, obviously we want people to leave. We can't force them to leave, but if they're gonna stay, it's good that we know they're here, cause it might be a phone call instead of having to send a fire truck full of people to a house to check on somebody. So,
Anybody else? All right, thank you.
I think also you should emphasize the benefit of this, not only to the safety of the individuals involved, it allowed us to get back on the island much, much quicker, because we
Right.
were able to determine that a search and rescue wasn't required.
Right, and that's one of the things learned from Ian, we knew it, but I think all parties learned it from Ian, is that there is an order to things. Life and then property, as we do it, say at the fire service. So we're going to do our search and rescue mission. The town knows now that they're gonna hold up their debris collection and utilities as much as they need to for that search and rescue to happen as quickly as possible. So after this storm, like I said, we were communicating with the sheriff's department. Another factor that played into Milton, that was a new one, and I'll just share it with you for your information. At Lee County, they took the medical director for the county and they parked him in the dispatch center. And so as calls came in for service, so when we stop running, when the weather conditions stop us from responding, those calls get logged, they get stacked up, if you will. And so as medical calls were coming in to 911 center, the lower acuity calls, the ones where they thought they might be able to help the patient, they pushed over to the medical director and they worked with telehealth. And by the time we were able to come back out of shelter, any outstanding medical calls standing for the district were already handled through
Wow.
telehealth. So that also played a big part in clearing that call log and letting us know exactly what we needed to do, so we could check off the search and rescue quickly, turn the island back over to the town, they can start getting utilities going and the debris cleaned up, so.
Yeah, getting utilities back on was the big factor, allowing people really to come back to the island.
And it obviously depends on the size of the storm and the severity of the damage, but it was a good exercise with Ian, so recent for us.
I think we learned a lot in this storm,
I do too.
and once you get these things documented and into your procedures going forward,
Yeah,
you can apply them to whatever situation you're in.
We'll put it in the plan so we don't have to keep having these storms and practicing. We'll put
Yes.
it in the plan.
Yeah.
So,
That would be much appreciated.
anything else for anybody?
We're good.
This is Ron here. Ron's here.
I was
Hey,
gonna
Ron.
say Ron's on, but go ahead, Ron.
No, I just wanted to give kudos to everyone too. Watching it from afar, being able to let I think letting the residents get back to their homes is a big deal. First off, next storm, let's hope we don't, but next storm, people knowing that they're gonna be able to get back to their homes sooner will be apt to leave and evacuate, knowing that they can get back. With residents getting back, looters, that type of stuff decreases, because now you have everybody back at their homes, and then I think that's the key is to let just the residents back, not everybody, don't open it up to everybody, but allowing the residents to get back to their homes just helps everybody. I know as a fire guy, when I go to a fire, that's the first thing I would be looking for is, where is the homeowner? Who's there? Where's it at? What do you think is going on? I'm getting all the information I can from those people that live there. And to me, that was just very instrumental in making a lot of this stuff go smooth, is letting residents get back. So thank you guys. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to my team.
All right,
Anything else?
That's
thank
it for
you.
me.
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Lieutenant Chitwood, would you like to say a few words?
Good morning, Lieutenant Matt Chitwood, Lee County Sheriff's Office, 3rd Precinct. As we are approaching January or December 31st, we have the New Year's Eve festivities that we're planning for right now. And moving past that, we're already looking at spring break, so we're looking at staffing that as based on what we see as we fall into season. As far as crime trends or anything standing out at this time, there's nothing that's really got us worried about anything down here when it comes to the crime trends. So we're we're good with, we're hopefully keep it nice and even keel as we're moving forward. Just to follow up with the fire side, Milton, we had a lot of good rehearsals throughout the year, so, we had a lot of practice. And by the time we got to Milton, it was almost like just regular routine duty for us as far as after the storm, working with the town, working with the fire service, and working with Lee County's emergency management side as far as getting things cleaned up, keeping things secured. I ran the operation down here for the couple days after the storm, and we didn't really have any major problems. We had a couple little hiccups here and there, but no major problems with re-entry on our side and working with the town that was handling that part of the operation. So, do you guys have any questions for us?
I will make a comment that I thought the way we handled things after Milton was much, much better than our experience with Ian. I noticed that the sheriff's office was on site much quicker, and had lots of personnel down here to dissuade anyone who might think they would be interested in committing a crime on the island during that vulnerable period of time right after they started letting people back on the island. And I felt like the response both from the fire district and the sheriff's office was superior in this particular instance. It's amazing how much I think we learned from Ian, and were able to take those lessons and apply them. And this was really the first evacuation, I think, since Ian. And I know there wasn't quite as much damage, but there was certainly as much sand. And it was so remarkably better. I just want to thank your office and thank the fire district for the outstanding work that both of your agencies did in working together to make sure that residents were safe and that they could get back to their properties as quickly as possible.
Thank you, and the sheriff has made sure that Commander Layler has everything he needs and everything that he asked for to make sure we're taking care of what we need to take care of. So,
We have this sand sculpting coming up. I presume you have a plan of action to police that as
Yes.
well. You didn't mention it, so I thought it's right in it's practically in your front pocket right now.
Yeah, I'm notoriously the guy that's looking, months out. So by the time it's here,
I
it's
can
already
see how that happens, yeah.
it's already over for me. I'm moving on to the 2-3 months out in front. So.
Yeah, I get you.
Any other questions for me?
I don't know if I wanna jump ahead, but I just have a question. I'm noticing that people, at night, when it's dark, are walking, and I don't know if we've had any, issues with this or any accidents, but, where all the FDOT, construction is happening, they're walking not on the sidewalk, on the beach side, they're walking on the Margaritaville side, and then they're also walking down the road, and it's pitch black down there. We have, again, no lighting, which I still can't understand that. As you come over the bridge, it's still dark as heck. Have we had any accidents, anybody that's gotten hurt? Because you cannot see them until they are literally right as you come around that curve, they're in your headlight and they're walking in the construction zone. And I don't know if there's something that we can do. That was part of my discussion today, because, now with more people coming, I think we're gonna have a problem. Because it is not, you just can't even see them.
I'm not aware of any major accidents that we've had. I
Okay.
can defer to Fireside if you're aware of any.
We haven't. I was down here a few weeks ago in the evening, and it is dark, I get it.
Yeah,
So it may be something where the town could talk with, construction companies.
to put up some
about-
lights.
That's.
All right, and I'll add that. I mean, I just didn't know if we've had any issues, because I've had a couple people tell me they've almost hit people walking because they come out of nowhere and you can't see them,
Yeah.
especially now when we're gonna start getting busier.
Right, we're getting hit double because the time change makes it dark sooner.
Yes.
And now we still have people in the downtown area that
Exactly.
are enjoying that venue, and it is dark as sin.
Yes.
I mean, I was just down there 2 days ago. I could not believe how dark it was.
That was one of the things I wanted to ask Dan, where are we at with these lights? I mean, for the love of
Why
God.
can't we put up, if FPL cannot resolve this, why can't we put up some temporary lighting over the bridge and down in
Yes.
the downtown area? Just
Just to
until
give
they can resolve their
yes.
FPL problem. Because, my gosh, it's dangerous, in
It's
my
bad.
opinion.
All right, well,
And how did we end up with no sidewalk on either side of the road? there's no place for anybody to be, and everybody wants to get from Margaritaville and Lonnie
To
Kai
across
and
the
everything
street.
else to Times Square, and there's no sidewalk on either side.
Right, or even any, barricades or some type of, you know, pathway to say, walk through here.
Right.
Right. Yeah, everybody's just
I know in the last.
wherever they can.
The last week, they have orange barricades that are taking it from Margaritaville to the crosswalk
Okay.
to Times Square.
Do we have like tape, like, so people aren't just zipping through, so it's like, you know, I almost feel like we have to treat them like, guide them that way and say, this is where you cross, you do not cut through here, and I think people would, most would follow that. Ron, did you have something? You-
I just, about 4 days ago, they, down my street, Sterling Avenue, they ran, the underground piping in the boxes, 4 streetlights they're gonna be putting down from Estero just past Louder. There'll be 4 streetlights. And I believe they're doing that on every side street, but, just so you guys know, they did run the underground for the streetlights on Sterling Avenue 4 days ago.
So they're, it's starting, it's just slowly making its way north.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think it's something we need to bring up with Tom, and maybe I'll send him an email, because we've gotta do something, cause it's bad.
You're right. By Christmas, this is gonna be a catastrophe,
Yeah.
I think.
And March, far worse.
Yeah.
Well, we know that.
Yeah.
It's a catastrophe on a good day.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think we have nothing else.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Okay. The next thing is new town council direction from the November 7th meeting. So I handed this out. You wanna give an
Yeah, I'll
update
just
since
give
you
a-
were talking about it, but then I did read some of the stuff that they're asking, so.
And you can build on it.
ahead.
So on November 7th, Town Hall, Town Council meeting, they went through the e-bike ordinance. They went and discussed, you know, what everyone's position was, perspective. All of the chairs had a chance to speak to it. One of the things that came about through that discussion was if they were interested in having an open conversation about changing the ordinance. Everyone was in favor of having that conversation. One thing that they also discussed was separating the ordinance for e-bikes on sidewalks compared to e-bikes on the beach. So what they wanted to have more of the language on the ordinance separated, so it wasn't gonna be one ordinance for both beach and sidewalk, but to separate the two. In their further discussions, they went through some possible terminology language that would be representative for the ordinance. One thing that they kept coming back to is some type of policing, or how do you say that if someone's riding reckless, you know, pull them over, have you know, the police pull them over, talk through them. Maybe there's a fine for going too fast or too reckless. And I think that's where we got, the town council had further conversation about you really can't measure speed when you're on an e-bike. So it's less about the speed, exact speed, but more about how you're actually in control of your e-bike or out of control of your e-bike. So they kicked around some of the terminology that they were considering. Before they adjourned, they asked the Public Safety Committee to review what they were asking for and to come up with terminology that would be something that the town rangers, the police department could regulate, but also would be in a way that just shares the importance of riding your e-bike, no matter if it's on the road, the sidewalk, on the beach, in control. And I think that's what we were asked as a public safety committee to come up some verbiage that goes along with that new ordinance to bring back to the town council for them to be in favor of, or to for our recommendation to them.
Okay, but let's go back. Number one, they did approve to ride e-bikes on the sidewalk in that meeting, correct? Didn't they? I thought they did. Jason, did they approve that? Jason, yeah, we need you over here.
Good morning, everybody. Jason Freeman for the record. I'll go back and check real quick. I believe that our town attorney has direction to start putting together an ordinance, so nothing I don't think is official
Okay,
at this
so
point.
nothing's official, cause I thought,
Um,
okay, cause
but let
I
me
thought
go
it was
try and
like
pull the minutes
leaning
real
toward they
quick.
were going to then, maybe
Sure.
that's it.
Yeah, let me go pull those minutes real quick and see if we have them.
Okay, that's number one. That's my first question.
Okay.
Number two, and I'm reading this, we keep talking about this additional bike lane, and that's down in here, Frankie said that they are still working with this R2P2
Correct.
of doing a bike lane that's separate from the regular sidewalks, and we keep pushing, I mean, it's been a year. Where are we at with that? Are we going to make any, progress?
Jason Freeman for the record again. So we did get a final draft of the R2P2 report
Okay,
from that team there, and we have been told that we should have the final report this week. And then that'll be going to town council, I believe, at hopefully in their next 2 meetings for discussion and approval. So that is in the final stage as well.
all right.
One of those things that they did highlight on there is the connectivity with like water taxis and bicycles and
Yes.
all of that sort of thing on there. So we should have that for your next meeting as well. So
Okay, cause that's huge.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't, okay, so I get that don't you think we need to wait for this attorney to come back with a state's
Proposed
ordinance? Of what we can and can't do, number one. Number two, I think that would dictate if you can ride on the beach or the sidewalk or whatever on the ordinance, cause from what I'm reading, we can't dictate. It's something about saying we can't dictate certain things the way they're dictating them right now.
Right. What the Vice Mayor Jim was talking through is like coming up with some terminology that you can enforce,
Yeah,
but it's not like a direct measurement. So things that I was coming up with, just brainstorming, it's like you're passing a pedestrian is, and really that's when there's a concern.
Yeah.
If there's no one on the sidewalk, no one on the beach, it's less of a concern, but it's when you're pulling up to a pedestrian, it's how you pass that pedestrian. There's an audible, a bell
Mhm.
or voice or something to alert the person that you're passing. You pass at a safe distance and speed. You pass on the left. Slow and steady. Priority is always given to the pedestrian, so, when you're approaching a pedestrian, come to a slow crawl to pass the pedestrian. And I think that's the language that I was thinking through when I was listening, to that town council meeting, was how do you, it's not less than 15 miles per hour, because then it's how do you regulate that? But if you are in a position where you're like, whenever we're trying to just educate people with e-bikes that, yes, when you approach a pedestrian, you have to be in control, you have to slow down, and you have to give that pedestrian the right of way, no matter what. So if that means coming to a complete stop, you have to come to a complete stop.
okay.
So that was the language, how to.
So
and
they're
that's
gonna
the
try to
language.
regulate conduct rather than, like you said, speed or, it's a lot like a reckless operation ordinance. They can define reckless operation in very general terms, but it doesn't have it can be speed, but typically it's your behavior and that'd be the same thing here. Like slowing down when approaching a pedestrian, making sure pedestrians are aware of your presence, passing on the left, giving them some sort of an audible signal, and yielding to the pedestrian at all times, up to and including stopping if the pedestrian is in your way.
Yeah.
These are all things that could easily be regulated. I think a police officer could sit on the street and watch an encounter between a bicycle or an e-bike and a pedestrian and say, whoa, he didn't do that safely. And it would be the officer's judgment based on the behavior that he observed as opposed to trying to get a speed on it.
I had a thought as well. I've done a lot of e-bike research lately, of saying, if you're on the sidewalk with pedestrians, or if you're on the sidewalk, period, you have to be pedaling. using the pedal assist as opposed to just using the trigger. Because most of the time, the triggers will just go the full 20 miles an hour, and in some of the older first generation electric bikes, there wasn't a lot of modulation to that. It was kind of almost an on-off switch, and off you went. And it's, I think also, I mean, everybody who learned to ride a bicycle at 5 just innately knows that when you're pedaling, the bike is going. When you're not pedaling, the bike slows down. And I think even with an e-bike, if because that's a very easy thing to enforce, is you see somebody whizzing down the sidewalk, not pedaling, you know, it's easy to enforce, oh, you have to be using the pedal assist, you have to be pedaling, because that keeps your brain engaged with what you're doing instead of just mindlessly hitting the throttle and going as fast as the bike will go.
Yeah, there was some comments about that, as well as just people just doing a little bit pedaling, just to say, hey, I'm pedaling, but really not, you know. So there, and I think that was the tough part, is how do you regulate, okay, are you really pedaling that much or less, or like how much, and it's so subjective. So,
Right.
no, I agree with you. You're more in control when you're pedaling,
Mhm.
right? And you're more
You're more
probably
intentional.
in a position, more intentional,
Yeah.
paying attention to what you're
Right.
doing. It's just another one of those, how do you regulate that, or how do you
Yes.
police it, and include that in the ordinance? So, yeah,
Yes.
no, thank you for that. I think it's just, and this is a tough one to work through some of the language on.
I think we run the risk of legislating behavior, and I don't know that we can do that. So,
Well, actually, I think you can in this
Well-
case.
okay, so if somebody is, like Jim said, fake pedaling, what do you do?
It isn't gonna be whether they're pedaling or fake pedaling or not pedaling. How did they approach that pedestrian? Did they
Correct.
slow down? Did they yield the right of way to the pedestrian? Did they give an audible signal of some sort, whether it's a passing on the left or whatever they have to do to let the pedestrian know that they're there?
And I understand that, but how do you write that into an ordinance versus simply the ordinance says you can ride on the sidewalk, you can't ride on the sidewalk. So, with that in mind, do you just write the ordinance like that, and then
And
we
it's-
message,
That's what you have to do.
okay, then we campaign and we say, look, you can't ride like a jerk. Take your time. This is, I mean, any message you want to put out there, this is Fort Myers Beach. Take it slow. Relax.
I think,
Some of these behavioral things can be in the ordinance.
Like reckless.
That's what you have, yeah, just like a reckless operation ordinance.
Clearly.
It's very behaviorally written.
Right. But I'm talking more about, you know, if somebody goes blazing down the sidewalk through a crowd of people, yes, you can legislate that. However, you know, how slow you go past somebody, how far in advance do you hit your bell? How far behind them do you yell on your left?
I think it's also though, okay, I know exactly what you're saying. I think we need the ordinance, what they're gonna allow, and then I think it's education. I think one of the things we've talked about before is, we also have to educate the walkers, the pedestrians,
Exactly.
that we have bikes on our sidewalks and we allow this. This is how they're supposed to be acting, because we do get that other side, we're like, how dare they be on the sidewalk, and really they were allowed to be on there.
Right.
So I feel like we need to educate, we have a shared sidewalk, whether it's some kind of painted line or some kind of, you know, pay attention, especially in the busy parts where we hit, you know, from a little north of Times Square down to, let's say, Red Coconut before we get the bike lane. I think that's the first thing. I think we also need to know what is the current information director here putting out there, and how are we distributing that? Are people even seeing it? So that's on the marketing side. If you're a visitor, how are we letting visitors know, hey, our sidewalks are shared? You're really not gonna be able to do it with probably much marketing. I do think you're gonna have it on signage on the sidewalk or something that lets you know that. And
Yep.
then the beach, I think the biggest issue where people get upset with the beach on a electric bike is when there are the crowds. If there's a huge crowd and you are riding in the hard sand by the water, you can't really ride up north. If there's different, what we've talked about, one of the ideas that was thrown out is having one of those, mats that we walk on, that when you go between the beach paths from the street to the beach, having a mat, and that's a designated lane for a bike, so people look, and you're not sitting there playing with your kids on the beach, and that's where people are getting upset. An e-bike went flying by me and I'm walking and I'm on the hard part of the sand, because you can't ride on the soft part of the sand. So I don't know if there's a way that we can come up with a solution for this bike path. Also, that mat can be rolled up during turtle season, and right when it's done, it rolls out, and this is your beach path for the year. But then that also goes back to walking. Maybe we put a sign, there are no bikes allowed. Like, and maybe it's something that's when they're bringing out that, when the, beach patrol is going out in the morning. Well, we know in March and we know in February, that beach is already starting to get busy at 8 o'clock. You'll have bikes on the beach. At some point, there's a sign, no bikes past this point, please walk your bikes. No, and then you can start here and we block it off, and it just becomes a learned behavior that they're gonna make you get off your bike if there's a crowd of people. But if you're on the south end hypothetically, or in the middle of the island, there's nobody there, be respectful. So I think it's more education and
Yeah.
sign it. I'm sorry, I know people didn't wanna do the painting on the sidewalk, but I still think we need something like that to say this is shared.
It's the most direct,
It is.
it's right there,
Yeah.
as much as, any pedestrian pays attention normally anyways.
Right, and it goes across languages too, so it's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
symbols are great, you know, 'cause we get, you know, there's an influx of people from all over, right? So
Right.
just having that icon on the ground is very easy indicator of where I should be, should I be walking on the right side or left side, and should looking over his shoulder
Yeah.
for a bike
Right.
that's coming. Plus you show the arrow with the bike to say that is the direction of travel, cause what we also see is bikes going in the reverse of travel. So, you know,
Now,
just.
that's something we can legislate, you have to be
Yeah,
go
on
in
the right
Go
side.
with traffic.
With traffic.
With
Here's the other
traffic.
thing, every bike rack should have a sign that says, remember,
Yeah.
these 5 things when you're biking, because you have to type your bike. So, I think we can look at this ordinance, but I think, and I'm happy that we get started as a group and bring it to our next meeting, coming up with some key points and take it to town council, because I feel like we are kind of beating a dead horse. We've talked about this over and over, and it is common sense, but now the biggest thing is getting it out there and not changing it. We continue to change it.
Right.
You can't have e-bikes, you can't have e-bikes. Well, let's get the ordinance, get it 100%, and then we can give direction of how, the POI Nicole can get that out. And then maybe we can mandate some money to have a test from, maybe we just do a certain area where it's really noticeable, where there's the combination of bikes. The other thing is, I don't think bikes should be able to ride on the sidewalk at all from, in that certain high congestion area, because there's not enough room for people for both. So maybe there's another sign, there's a big X, no bikes from here to here. And I'm just gonna use this as an example from, I mean, this is just a hypothetical, Beach Bar to Times Square. There are no bikes on the sidewalk on each side of the road due to the mass amount of pedestrian,
And,
something like that.
and maybe that's the R2P2, I'd like to
Yes.
see what they're coming up with, cause that's the congestion point,
Right.
so.
Yeah, if you remember pre-Ian, we had that in Times Square too. We had the signs there. Walk
Exactly.
your bikes to Times Square.
Right, I mean, I saw a gentleman the other day, and he's trying to weave around people. You can't move, he's going, you know, slower than a walker, just get off your bike and walk it.
And one build on the beach, you were talking about where you could ride, where not.
Yeah.
Part of an ordinance also could include times. So, you know, from noon till 4, you cannot ride on the beach, cause that's when most people are there.
Right.
So you could also do an ordinance of, cause it's, you know, alright, at noon,
Yeah.
sorry, you know, the beach is closed for, e-bikes. So
Yeah.
it's just another idea of like,
That's a good idea too.
versus saying, okay, this section and that section.
Right.
Just say, no e-bikes on the beach between 12 and 4.
Right,
You know, just, and then everyone's aware of that, so, something that's easy to communicate that people can follow.
But you also have to keep in mind that the question is, do we want, isn't some of what we're trying to do is keeping a few cars off the road and helping traffic? Well, if you restrict, you know, 10 to 4 o'clock is when the traffic is the worst, and that's when people are gonna wanna be on the bikes and not be one person in a 2-ton, 16-foot long car
Right.
taking up another spot in
What-
traffic.
What I'm saying is not on the beach. They can
Not
ride
on
on the
the beach,
sidewalk.
yeah.
Right, so they're fine to move over to the road and the sidewalk, but from the beach standpoint, where you have a lot of children running, playing, not looking.
See, I don't agree with that. I actually think there are certain sections where that we mandate you can't ride. And maybe you add to it, like, you have to walk your bike from here to here. You can get back on, and there's a stretch that there's not very many people there, you could probably get by, especially if you're going to work and you're on the south end. But I really do think this R2, P2 thing could solve many of our issues. Anyway, so I guess this is what I would like to propose. If this proposal's coming in for R2P2 in the next week, or next month, we wait to see what they say, and we all pay attention, and so that we're prepared for the next meeting. Number two, I would be more than happy to have Nicole send us currently right now what she's sending out for people and how it's being distributed for the biking, and have it send it to all of our group. So again, we can have that data, so we're prepared. I would like to propose to the town, once we get the actual ordinance of what we can and can't do or mandate, do we have money in the town budget that we could propose to say we'd like additional signage on the sidewalks and, in different areas of town? Can we test it? Cause I think we own the sidewalks, don't we own the sidewalks? Yes, or does Lee County?
I think Lee County does,
County,
along,
Well, then-
along Estero.
Okay,
think that's
well,
county.
we can ask Lee County, we want it. So maybe we start with that, so that next meeting, we have a little more data, because we do, I think we're all kind of, I mean, a lot of it's common sense, seriously. And then, but I don't want us to go to all this work and then the ordinance comes back and they say, oh, you can't do that. You know, we have to do it this way. We can't tell somebody you can't ride on the beach, or whatever it is.
Should we, maybe we need to be thinking about all bikes, not just e-bikes?
I
Cause
agree.
I can ride a regular pedal-powered bike at 17 to 22 miles an hour too.
I agree, I think
And-
it's bikes regardless, I mean, I think you're
Right.
gonna have different e-bike rules on certain things, but I think riding a bike, period, may not be allowed in certain areas with high congestion of pedestrians, you have to walk it regardless of where you are. Is everybody okay with, I know they tasked us to do it, but I kinda think we need a little more information, and I don't wanna put a bunch of work into it if we've got this new pathway coming in, and it could eliminate everything. I don't know. Or do you have any other comments?
I would say we need more information, yes.
And I'll pull some of the stuff from our past meetings, we've done a lot of this already.
Right.
And then, but they change the ordinance, then we just need to, it's really getting the word out there and how we share it with everybody, not just our locals, but our visitors.
I believe town council left it, saying okay to ride on the sidewalks with traffic, and they said no to riding e-bikes on the beach. The fact of the matter, I own an e-bike, and salt and sand, both coincidentally found on a beach, are death to an e-bike.
Right.
So a lot of these companies who are renting these e-bikes, I'm willing to bet they might have something in their contract that says no sand. I mean, there's enough sand on the streets already. Riding on the beach it'll take out your battery. The salt water will take out, we know what salt water does to lithium ion batteries. And it's an abrasive, so it's gonna scratch up, the discs and everything else on an e-bike. So I think riding an e-bike on the beach is moot already.
Well, I think
So-
the main reason people ride an e-bike on the beach is to actually, you're trying to get somewhere fast. It's
Possible.
not a leisurely bike ride, whereas, so when they're on the street, that's why they're going 40 miles an hour, they're going to work, they're going to the north end, they're going to south end, whatever it is, instead of using a car. It could just be bikes are allowed on the beach, but these are our rules.
The beach is a lot more difficult to regulate, I think, than the sidewalk.
Well, and we talked about, you give a couple people tickets or warnings from beach patrol of somebody who's riding, it gets out pretty fast. It'll start people to say, hey, they'll ticket you, don't ride here, and, it's almost like that learned behavior. We haven't done that yet.
Again,
Yeah.
we're gonna be boiling down to almost behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, if the beach patrol says you're riding your e-bike in an unsafe manner, you have the right, you can contest that. He has to be able to articulate what he saw that he believed was unsafe. And if there are children playing in the surf and you just go buzzing between them and their parents, and these kids, they don't even know you're coming, how do you, you could say that was just unsafe, you went buzzing
Well,
by.
and you're gonna miss most of those.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
not
only
gonna
the beach
catch 'em.
patrol would catch it by accident,
Yeah.
if they happen to be there. But that's how all law enforcement is in this country, it's all by accident if
Yeah.
they happen to be there.
So, I just think again, it's gonna just have to be learned. I mean, marketing and education.
Mhm.
All right, so I'd like to, this is my proposal, unless you have something else. Jim. I'll get the information that I just said, and then we'll wait to see what, this company has come up with as a path, and, we might be able to, it might solve so many issues. If you're trying to get north, you take the bike path. And you wanna take your, anything that's electric, takes the bike path.
Well, you might also wanna know how quickly council's expecting us to provide the feedback.
Okay, we'll
Because how
find that out.
quickly are they anticipating trying to put together some sort of an ordinance for the sidewalk in particular?
Okay,
As season is approaching, they may not want us to wait too long to provide them some feedback. How does the public feel about this, and what our thoughts are on how that wording might go? And then, if Dan were here, he could tell us, but
I
he's
know.
not, so.
Yeah.
It's difficult for us to be highly effective when we don't have some of the
Right.
most important elements here, so.
okay. All right, well,
And it might also be worth considering the, the safety of the e-bike riders. The longer we force them down into traffic, now you're on a bicycle and you're forced to be in traffic with 2-ton cars
Right.
who aren't necessarily always happy that you're there.
well, that's an issue too right now. We have a
So-
lot of people who are workers here and they're not paying attention on the beach.
Right. And, the bike lanes, you see all these contractor trucks towing trailers, and they're almost always over the line into the bike lanes. Not that there's anybody in those bike lanes right now because they're full of sand and you can't ride on them anyways, but, which is probably something we need to bring up with town council, that there's sand in the bike lanes the whole length of the island.
That's county though, that's county responsibility, so, the town, we're just responsible for the side streets, I believe. So those, I know the piles you're talking about,
Yeah.
but yeah, I believe that's a Lee County thing.
Right,
So-
but we need to,
Oh, yeah.
that, I'm assuming the town council is who's gotta go to Lee County and say, we still have a big safety problem with sand the entire length of the island in the bike lanes, and for that matter, on a lot of the sidewalk. So,
Which is going to drive bikes up on the sidewalk, for safety's sake, for their own safety.
yes,
Absolutely.
yes, you almost never see a bike in the bike lanes right now, cause they're not willing to ride in the sand. Of course, then they end up in the sand that's on the sidewalk too, so 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Okay. All right, well, I'll see if we can get some more information, then we can send it out to the group so that everybody knows.
And then, I guess the only build was the request for us to come back with some language around the ordinance. I think we need a little time to look at what's in the ordinance
Yeah.
right now.
The
And then,
proposed ordinance, yeah.
and then I'd say we come back with, things that I was talking about earlier, like how do you pass a pedestrian, and some language around
Okay.
reckless, riding on sidewalks. So I think that's a key takeaway for each of us to come back at the next meeting with.
I agree with that, but I also wanna ask Nicole, what has she already done, so that we can look at, so we're not saying all this stuff and she's already written all this information, and has started working on it, so I'll have her send us as well, so we can look at her information, so we're not, she might be halfway done with it for all we know, but I'll get that, and get it to everybody. Okay, hurricane response plan, we kind of talked about that.
We did, and I think that's, as an action, we just talked about with Chief Worth, I think there's a opportunity there to leverage the form that he initiated, that seemed to work well. When you get that many response, and really there wasn't a lot of, public knowledge of it being out there, so we could use code red and blast it out in many different ways so that people know to fill out the form. I think there's probably some communication I could work with Nicole on that. And then I could also work with Nicole and take a look at that new app,
Yeah.
see if that's a better way to house this information and sort through it.
People obviously learn to do it, so, cause
Yeah.
they got a lot of information, or a lot of people called in, so that's good.
Absolutely, so, which is great, I think that's the behavior we
Huge.
love, because, you know, we need to hear from our residents and guests, so that's a great way of approaching it, and I think as we look into the future, it will be, just perfecting that a little bit more.
Crosswalk messaging, and I'm just gonna meld that into FDOT roundabout messaging, cause I think that's our, that's all the same stuff. I don't think we've had any messaging from the town about crosswalks or anything, cause we've been so quiet for 2 years. I don't think we have a problem with the crosswalks. I mean, people are slowing down, a lot of the workers are not, but if you're from here, if you're a visitor, they do slow down. I think our biggest issue is FDOT roundabout messaging when this gets going of what's gonna, like being aware that there's gonna be more crosswalks down there and how they're gonna function. And I mean, I think we need to, I think the next step really is to get through this construction and how people are crossing right now and get through this season, cause I think that's our biggest issue. And I think we're gonna have some problems.
The only thing I think that would be helpful is if they had some signage that just reminded people as they come along the island that pedestrians have the right of way and a crosswalk.
Mm.
And, because if you're coming in from another jurisdiction or another state, or that things are different in other places up north, where the car has the right of way unless there's some device there to control
Yeah.
the crossing of a pedestrian. And then, so the pedestrian's responsibility is to wait for traffic to clear and then cross. But on our island, it's the opposite. A pedestrian has the right of way and the car has to stop. And you're coming from, up north, you're not gonna know that. Now, if you come here all the time, you would, or if you live here, you would. But if you're a visitor, and we have a lot of visitors, that's a large percentage of the people we have here in the winter, they're not gonna necessarily know that. So just something that would tell people that on Estero Island, pedestrians have the right of way and a crosswalk would be helpful.
I wish Tom was here, we could ask him what they're doing, cause I have a feeling they know there's,
I don't
they've
think.
gotta be given.
I don't think we're covering new ground here.
No.
I think they understand the issues. It's a matter of whether or not, with the construction up there, what happens is you become blind to every sign. Because you're focusing on not getting run over or running over something or somebody. And there's lots of construction signs and detour signs and,
You can't even see the street signs, I mean, there's so much stuff going on.
And a lot of the crosswalks are fading. I mean,
It's-
some of the laminate is missing, or
Yeah.
the paint is fading, whatever you wanna
Probably
call
need
it.
to be,
but-
have everything painted.
and we're gonna have to have,
Agree.
the whole island, Estero Boulevard's gonna need a whole refresh, frankly, from the
Yeah.
county. After these two past hurricanes that washed a lot of water and sand across Estero Boulevard, it like sanded the street. So a lot of the markings are diminishing.
I also think we need to start having some of our crosswalks saying not just English but Spanish, because we have, it's a huge coalition of, Hispanic workers on the beach, and some of them don't speak English, to be like, to say, slow down or stop for pedestrians, or, right away.
Well, they're not generally in the crosswalks anyway, so.
No, I
I
meant the
mean-
drivers.
The
They're
drivers.
driving.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the majority of the people on our street
Yeah.
do not speak English, which is fine. We just wanna make sure that, that they know also what's going on.
So how do we follow up with, with the crosswalks as far as painting? Because I know that's FDOT probably as well, right? So.
I think we need to ask Tom if,
'cause I
have
think
they
that-
said,
I
have
think
they already put it in?
You're spot on, it's just, you barely see it, when you're driving along. I mean, and I remember we did the bike path with all the different colors.
Yeah, that
That
needs-
test,
Yeah.
which is, we can look at that again after the R2P2, study, but I could even consider that for crosswalks, just
Mhm.
white lines in the road, there's just so much other things to see.
Yeah.
But if you really make those bold and colorful, people will know, okay, that's a crosswalk here, and you can see it, and then, hopefully pedestrians will walk over to it and then cross at that location. That's,
Yeah.
it's the behavior of pedestrian just saying, oh, I don't see anything, so I'm just gonna cut across here. And then, also drivers, all of a sudden get surprised when someone just steps out in front of them.
I think we need to add this to our list of is the town doing something already? And if they're not, then we go in and we contact Lee County.
Yeah.
We should be making some recommendations on what we think
Yeah.
would be helpful in that regard.
And you know what, I can go to the next
Yeah.
town council meeting, that they have time, cause we haven't had it, and do a update and ask that.
Okay.
Where are we?
Cause there was
Okay.
even talk at a town council meeting several months ago about even the idea of putting up the barriers so that you can't just shoot across, you've gotta go to the end of the barrier,
Yeah.
and the only openings in the barriers were at the crosswalks.
That's exactly what I was talking about, around the F-Tide.
You're talking about primarily the downtown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, we could almost continue up to the line of Tide, you know,
Yeah.
Beach
We-
Bar,
We have
Yeah,
talked
to the
about,
beach bar,
yeah.
Yeah.
we've talked about that, other cities have successfully
right.
applied that technique. Whether we would wanna do it year-round versus just through season, you know, to install the temporary barriers. You can make a huge improvement in pedestrian behavior.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just for like January and through April.
Yeah.
okay. Survey.
Alright. More paperwork for you guys. So, it's been a long, just take this, pass it down. And then, Jason, you can put that on the screen, thank you so much. First of all, I wanna thank everyone that took the survey, it's been quite a while since we've come back to it. So we had sent out the survey, back in May. So we had 379 responses, which was great. So, you know, we had a chance to kind of go through these. We had like 5 questions, and I'll just walk through it. And for anyone that's listening to our committee, so the first one is feeling informed about what is happening to improve safety on Fort Myers Beach. What was alarming to that was there's 61% don't know, and you know, I feel that that's a really strong opportunity for us as a public safety committee to focus in on you know, how do we inform what we're doing as a committee and what Fort Myers Beach is doing to improve safety. So I think that's a strong indicator of we have some work to do to, you know, improve that. I'd like to see that move towards more yeses than nos, so that, you know, we feel like we're making a difference. So that was good feedback. The second one around know how to report public safety finding. Surprising to me, there's over 67% said no. And if you go onto the Fort Myers Beach website, up in the top, there's in big bold red, it says to report a safety concern. So, you know, I think there's more education that we can do, you know, with signage or people coming to the island, or if you're staying a weekly at a rental, having those communications present. You know, we talk about bike safety, but also, you know, if you do see a safety concern, you know, that's how the beach becomes more safe. It's not just, you know, this committee, or if it's not just the town council looking for these things, or town manager, it's everybody that's visiting. Fresh eyes on a safety concern is super important. So we want to hear from, you know, residents and guests, and we want to make it easy for them and know how to do that. So we see an opportunity, you know, how we market that a little bit more. And then just the third one here around willingness to participate in neighborhood watch. We did have about 30% of the respondents said, sure, would like to be part of that. And I think that's something we can follow up on at a later date as we set up maybe a program to do that. But that was it's really nice to see that, you know, our community is willing to step in and help out other neighbors, but also be on a watch program to make sure everyone's safe, and that there's no and report if there are any safety concerns. So that was the 3 top questions. Now we get into some of the bar charts here, and let me walk you through a little bit on how we actually can read these. There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay, bike safety. So how you can read this is basically there's 5 points. So there's most important, more important, important, less important, not important. Then there's no responses. So that is on each one of these bar charts. best way to read this is your top two box. So when you look at bike safety, the question was, do you feel that bike safety is most important or not important? So each of the 379 respondents had a chance to rank these as important or not less important. And what I have done here is just break it out by percentage. We had a good amount of no responses, so and that equals out to 100%. What I want to focus on, because there's a lot of information here and lots of numbers, is really the top two box. And when we say top two box, it's most important and more important. So if that is tallying up to around 50% or greater, that's an area that is definitely a concern with the respondents that took this study. So when you look at bike safety, definitely an important area. May not be as important as, say, pedestrian safety. If you look at pedestrian safety, they're ranking this at most important over, say, 45%, plus the more important at 25%. So significant importance around pedestrian safety, a little bit less on the bike safety. So it really tells us to, when we talk about crosswalks, or even when we talk about bikes on sidewalks with pedestrians, anywhere a pedestrian is walking or out, there's definitely a concern for their safety, and that was what we've had heard. That ladders into the crosswalk conversation we were just having a few minutes ago, but that's also, we said that crosswalks is over that 50% for those top two boxes. So more signage around crosswalks, showing. One of the things we heard, blinking lights around crosswalks, lights overhead where the crosswalks are, just lighting up at nighttime. Because you could be in a crosswalk, but if there's no lights, no one can see you. So, there is definitely heightened, just awareness around crosswalks and level of importance. Motor vehicle enforcement, you can see there it's important. I think there is. Speeding was one thing that was coming up quite a bit. So, we could look at that as, maybe a little bit less important at this moment compared to some of the pedestrian and crosswalk safety. Neighborhood watch, again, that was a little bit lower as far as focus areas. As you can see, most important at 9%. So when you look at that, that's probably less as important. Homeless, kind of similar in that area. Doesn't seem like we have a lot of concerns in that at the moment. So, as of May, when this study was conducted, street lighting by far came up quite a bit, and you can see by the numbers here, 48% saying that's most important. I think that's one of the things that I look at as opportunity for us to, as a town, to broadcast what we're doing and the status and progress that we're making against it, and looking at ways to do that through communication on the website to say, hey, we've put our first light in or our 50th light in, we still have 100 to do, but it's one of the top things that our community's talking about. They say it's the most important. We need to do a great job at over communicating the status of that. Traffic is of course up there at 45%, and then we're seeing that probably with the construction, along with this was before the construction started, so it's probably even ticked up higher now with the construction underway. The last two here, beach water safety, is up there, but not as important with 18.5%. And then theft and vandalism, which is a little bit on the lower side there, similar to beach and water safety. So if I did a quick summary of what this is, you look at it from bike safety, pedestrian safety, crosswalks, street lighting, and traffic. Probably not a surprise to anyone. I think if you're a resident of Fort Myers Beach, those are definitely always top of mind. But it's good to actually hear this back from our communities as well, instead of us guessing at it. We also had on the right side, there's put some bullet points down, and this was specifically around a question: how could Fort Myers Beach? What can Fort Myers Beach do to improve safety? And this was an open answer, and everyone had responded I went through all each of the responses, and by far lighting kept coming up. I mean, it was just over and over again. Police presence and enforcement was actually more than I expected. They were asking for more police presence on and off the beach too. So, and through neighborhoods, not just on Estero where they see them, but through neighborhoods as well on both ends of the island. So that was one that was an open answer that I saw quite a bit. Crosswalks with blinking lights was another one. Bike lanes, rumble strips separating bike lanes. So therefore, that if you're on a bike lane on the road, that there's making sure those rumble strips are still in place, because I think some of them may have been removed with the recent storms. E-bike enforcement and sidewalk repairs, and then beach ranger patrol day and night. So there's a few comments about, hey, great, we see them during the day, but everyone disappears at nighttime. I think that being dark and adding safety, I think that's an important presence to be out when people are out at nighttime, is to have some level of presence at that time. So those were all the open answers from the survey. As I went through this and thought about it, and I thought about our committee, one of the things that we can also do is have everyone take this back, think through it, but also when we come meet again in December, is if someone feels like, hey, this is something I want to dig into a little bit further, and work with Nicole or work with town manager or Tom to improve on. And it could be about just how do we improve the communication out about what we're doing as far as a safety committee, that type of marketing. It'd be great if someone on this committee could lead that initiative and then come back and report out. So I think that I'll just leave this here for now, with everyone to digest this time. But I think for our next meeting, I think it'd be great to kind of come back to this and say, yeah, I want to own this piece, and then drive forward to make sure that we're making progress about what our community is asking us to do.
Jim, were these in any kind of order of number of responses you got on those?
I
that
will-
were like and similar?
I will get that to you. I have them through in a spreadsheet, so I'd have to go back and just count each
Yeah,
one out
I
of
was
three
just trying
of
to-
them. So
Is this like the order of
not an order of importance.
importance to people, or no? It's
No,
just generally.
It's just general. There's the top ones that we saw out of all
Right.
of those.
Okay.
It's
Not-
interesting.
But not in order.
Okay.
I'll come back to you with that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to know, because
Yep.
there are things the town can do, and there are things that they can encourage the sheriff's office to do, although they don't have total control over that. Like they could have rangers out at night with flashing lights on their vehicles up and down Estero Boulevard 100 times. At least there's people out there doing that. That's a town controlled item.
Right.
There are other things that wouldn't be necessarily so, because you have to depend on the county to cooperate, or
Yeah.
the sheriff's office to cooperate.
Great job.
Go back and number.
So we should go through, if anybody wants to dig into a little more on a couple of things, I have a couple ideas, like on the website. I wanna go through the website and see where we're missing, so I wanna do a little research on that.
Yeah.
Like, should we start having QR codes at certain places where people can scan in and see something that's safe, let us know, type of thing, but,
Right. And just
awesome,
getting the information out, I think is what they're asking us for.
yeah, I think it's great. Alright, so next, everybody be prepared next time, let's, see if you can do a little more research on this, check out our website, see what things we're missing. And then, hopefully we'll have some other answers about lighting and some other things, cause it looks like really lighting, and it's kind of ironic that the e-bikes that we're talking about so much is kinda a little lower on the totem pole with people, so really, our biggest issue right now, I think, is crosswalks, lighting, and getting people around safely, and the traffic, and how to, work with that, so, we might be focusing on something that's not as important as what the people really want,
Exactly.
which is awesome. Okay, Amy needed something to say. Amy, would you like to say something?
Good morning. I'm Amy Baker, Town Clerk for the record. I'm here just asking you, I have a couple meetings of yours that need to be rescheduled.
Okay.
Council set their 2025 schedule yesterday, so November 17th is your next meeting. You're normally scheduled the third
Third Tuesday.
Tuesday of every month.
I'm good.
Okay?
Is everyone good on December 17th?
December 17th.
Mhm.
Yes.
Perfect. That's all I had for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then after February, March, it goes back to the.
Right, every other, just the January and February meetings are the only ones we needed to move at this time. All right, thank you.
And while you're here, we were gonna do the Sunshine Law
Training.
training. Do you have any update on when that will be back?
I am assuming it's going to be at your December meeting because the attorney asked me when that date was. So, but we'll double check with them and let you know.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, member items? Let's start over. Jim, you have anything?
The only thing I was gonna bring up was the lighting over the bridge and in the downtown portion of the island. And what is the prognosis for having some lighting by busy season time? And if there isn't any, is there any chance we could run some temporary lighting through this season if FPL says we cannot possibly get permanent lighting installed?
Okay. I the same thing.
Yeah, that's it.
And for me, it's the same thing as around that, all that FDOT project. There's a lot of people running across the road between Yucatan to get to the lighthouse and to Margaritaville, and there's, I mean, just some signage there. The people gonna do it, you know,
Yeah.
because they're not gonna go around, and then they don't know where to go. So we have to, like you said, you have to direct them in
Right.
a way, and that's like ropes and cones. They do this for sporting events, they do it for anything, concerts, and we just follow that line. So, you know, I think that's something that FDOT needs to also be looking at, is how we protect pedestrians during a time of construction. And-
Well, the other thing is, there's a back way to go.
Yes.
Maybe we need to push with the town right now to promote heavily the back way, which you go under the bridge.
The bridge and wrap
By
around.
and we create a walkway back there for those people who are leaving the Margaritaville side and Tiki to get over, so they're not crossing there, and we, you know, get to Times Square without crossing. I mean, I think we need to push this hard.
And that's signage, you know, directing people. I mean, people will do it if
Yes.
you show, but if there's, I mean, if it's chaotic, people just basically will.
No pedestrian crossing here,
Right.
follow the
follow this-
path.
It's like a
Yeah.
detour. So during construction, your detour pedestrian path is this way.
Alright.
And I think
And
that's where, you know, we could work probably with Nicole or with Tom to have that signage.
We need to get that up now.
And, I mean, it's just maybe it's on the website too. Here's a map.
I don't think, no one's going to the website.
No.
We need
No.
a big sign when you leave Margaritaville, cause, okay, you're either gonna come down the steps from the sun deck, or you're coming from the front door. Pedestrian, route to downtown, this way. Pedestrian route to downtown, this way. And we take them all the way around, not to go across the street there,
It's-
and go under the bridge.
Especially with no sidewalks on either side of the road.
Exactly.
There's no way,
Yeah.
there's no way to get from Fins Up to
Exactly.
downtown, to Times Square or anything. It's just,
Did it look like they were digging it out? Are they getting ready to pour that? Does anybody know? I see, that's the other thing I don't know, cause that's the town, but I'd like to put that in, like get it done now. That should be something that they could make some kind of signage and get people to not be crossing right in the middle of the road.
is there any chance of getting an FDOT representative in here to meet with us and so we can get some concerns on the record saying there's no sidewalks, there's no barriers, there's no signs,
Well, that's
there's
not
no lighting.
FDOT, I think that's Lee County. I think we have to do Lee County, but FDOT was supposed to come in
Yeah.
and they kept canceling. But I'll see if we can get them to come back in, or they were supposed to do a big presentation.
Yeah, they were gonna show us how they're.
They were gonna
what
show
their
us
whole
how everything
plan
was gonna work, and then, Milton hit, or Helene.
Well,
or all of the above. So I'll see if we can get that going again, but we need to reroute these people, this is not good.
And I mean, realistically, we need the big barriers that you can't climb over. Signs,
Yeah,
people don't read signs. They really don't, or it doesn't apply to them, or they don't comprehend, I don't know,
Well,
but
even
the only thing that works is the big 3 foot tall barriers
Yeah.
that you can't get past.
even if you had a big sign that says, like pedestrian route to downtown, and you had the bars, Yucatan,
Yeah.
it's not, where they're going, cause that's where they're walking, they're not real sure.
Right.
Route this way.
Yeah. Well, the drivers aren't real sure. Everybody goes down Crescent, and then thinks,
turning
I gotta
left."
turn left, and then they're out there and they're stuck and they're
Yes.
stopping traffic.
We're getting that too.
Because, oh wait, I wanna go there, but I can't get there from
Yeah.
here, and, yeah,
That's exactly right, we're seeing a lot of left-hand turn lanes there, left-hand,
yes.
we got some issues.
Yeah, and I mean, they have those Jersey barriers on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, can we have a few of them down?
Just
to-
continue, especially on the Yucatan side, right on down and around the corner,
Exactly.
because if you're on the Margaritaville or Lighthouse side, and you look across and there's nowhere to go,
Right. Then
you're
have to-
less likely to go trucking across there and then go, well, what do I do now?
or it's like, here you go through here, you know,
Yeah,
just
they
give 'em
just
a
don't
gap.
know they don't know it's there, they don't know
Right.
that there is a walkway, and we need to talk to Tiki, cause I think you go through their property. We need to,
That's the
we need to ask Tiki, we'd like to create a temporary, I mean, we gotta think of we gotta come up with something, cause this isn't good. Okay, well, I'll talk to Tom, maybe I can get a meeting with Tom, I actually have to meet with him anyway, that's what I was gonna say, the walking people and the lights, you?
The only thing I got, and that's the hill I'm gonna die on, is the e-bike ordinance, and that's what it is. I know there's a website, you were talking about marketing and messaging and money and stuff like that. There are a number of websites, organizations, foundations who will give grants to promote bicycles in communities. So bicycle-friendly community, if the town decides we want to be one, there are sources for that kind of income that will support painting, laminate, signage, whatever. So I'll bring a list next time.
That'd be great, cause then maybe we can have a grant writer at the town put something in for us so we can get that done.
So that's what I got.
Todd?
The only, I had 3, 2 of them are dead horses that we've already beat pretty well. The only other one I had, and is somewhat personal to me because I have a boat at Moss Marina, so I'm constantly going through downtown and up and down Old San Carlos. We need a line put back in the middle of Old San Carlos because people see cars parked on both sides and they're driving down the middle of the road and because they're going, oh, there's not enough room, I can't get over here, and it's a battle. I go down and I'm like, I'm driving, especially heading down from Moss towards Times Square. I mean, you just get all that traffic coming up, and they're coming right up the center of the street because they have no idea that
It's a
it's
two-lane.
that it's two-way, or they're just terrified because it looks small, and I got to stay away from these parked cars, and then you get people. I mean, just do the one yellow line right down the middle, and people will just automatically get to their own side.
Or they'll at least realize that as they're approaching they know they have to get over.
Yeah. Yeah, because I at least once a week I have to come to a stop, and because people are coming at me and they're less than 2 car lengths from me, and they're like just keep coming, so I just have to stop and wait for them to hopefully move over before they run into.
Well, that's our jurisdiction, not
Right,
the
Yeah.
county,
and
so
right,
that's good.
exactly, and that's
we could
that's
do
why I
that.
thought it's the one, because my other one was the sand and the bike lanes all the way down, but
Sure.
I don't know how we do anything other than that, except we go up and down the island with my truck and a shovel and a broom.
I saw them shoveling the bike lanes and the curbing area out, but I didn't know if it was town's employees or contractors or if it was county. They were literally out in
Right,
getting it up on the, at least out of the street.
yeah.
Then the next step is to get it off of the sidewalk, median area.
And there's not a huge amount, I don't know, I mean, I, just parking today, I see the sweeper parked in the parking lot. Okay, it's not our street, I get it, but we've got a sweeping machine right there.
It's a brand new one, I know that. It's a new sweeper, and I think they're still training on it. That's what I heard. Through the grapevine.
I got a great place for them to train.
That's what I said, my street. I go, hey, you can do it on my street.
Yeah. Sterile Boulevard, just head on down.
Um,
When you hit water, turn around, come back.
Anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay. Ron?
No, I think, as I get more information for December, I'll be ready to
Yeah.
get a little bit more,
This meeting's a
have a
little
little
hard.
bit more.
Yeah, this meeting's a little hard since it's, you know, our first one, but, okay. We got our next public comment? No. Next meeting agenda, we usually take this, I'm gonna add, we'll go through all of this, we'll have probably the same, it'll be the same agenda, I don't think we have anything new, but we have just more detail to discuss on this, on the items that we listed. I will set up a time to go to a town council meeting for a liaison, I think you did the last one, Jim. And so I'll get on that and talk about some of these things, and, we usually we get more information when Tom's here and Dan, so. It's
Right.
kinda hard, and that's, one of the hard things is when they're not here, we wanna, a lot of times we'll say, oh, we should do this, and like, oh, we're already doing it, so we just wanna make sure that's on top of it, but I really think we have a lighting issue right now and the pedestrian crossing, so, and that's top of mind, we need to get that going, I know e-bikes, but it's interesting when you start doing a survey, people are not really worried about e-bikes right now, that you've got that ordinance, we gotta
Right.
get that done, but it's not
Yeah.
about safety, it's more of a clarification issue.
But the e-bike thing, to me, is a pretty close tangent to traffic. And
True.
traffic was probably the highest one on the list.
True.
But if we could
And
get,
pedestrian safety.
if
And
we can get,
pedestrian safety.
yeah, it's right there bridging
Yeah.
a couple of other things that are important.
Exactly.
So, and yes, I'd love to quit driving